Hello, welcome to Stretford Paddock. My name is Joe. That is Ronaldo. Manchester United 0, Newcastle 0. A frustrating, difficult, cagey game that ended up with basically an absolute sitter being missed by Marcus Rashford. And it ended 0-0.
What I will say about, before I go on to the fact that Rashford definitely should have scored that, it was a big chance and it wasn't easy. I just feel like he needed to take the target more than anything else. But we looked a lot more threatening and he did a lot more on the short time that he was on than when Ronaldo was up front. We'll say that. Because I know there's going to be a lot of Ronaldo fanboys saying Ronaldo would have scored that opportunity, blah, blah, blah. But I think United looked better and Rashford was more of a threat than Ronaldo was. And that's a bit of an issue because Ronaldo isn't Rashford isn't basically a reliable forward either in terms of a number 9. He's never really proven that. He's better on the left. I think as a striker, he loses a little bit of some of his best traits.
Yeah.
So the concern is, at this moment in time, our best striking option is Rashford, who isn't exactly reliable in that position because Martial is never available. And I always say availability is the best ability, and he's never is that. You've got Ronaldo, who's a shadow of himself. He's basically nothing more than a box predator who seems to be coming deep for the ball, and he's never been that type of player anyway. He doesn't really run in behind. He's constantly offside. His link-up play hasn't been great either. He's got this kind of aura about him where it seems players seem to be trying to force the ball to him, so it makes us a little bit more disjointed as well. It just was a very fragmented, disjointed game. There wasn't a lot of fluidity through the back lines. We seemed to be going very direct, bypassing midfield too often. I don't know whether that's because of the fact that Eriksen weren't playing and you haven't got much ball playing ability in Casemiro and Fred as a combination. I don't think Fred was very good. I think we have a massive quality drop when he does play. In the second half, he was slightly better.
Yeah.
Because I think what he does have is an engine, and I think when players and teams tire, he can do a little bit more in that sense. But as someone to start for Manchester United who has aspirations of doing anything, you can't start Fred.
Just on Fred, because I criticised him a lot in the first half, I thought he was noticeably better in the second half. And this is a phenomenon that you kind of pointed out. Let me just take you through some statistics for Man United today. Most passes, Fred. Most attacking third passes, Fred. Second most shots, Fred. Attacking aerial duels won, the number 1, Fred. Ball recoveries, Fred. Like, he does this thing, he has this uncanny knack of appearing at the top of quite important stats and yet seemingly having an inconsistent and poor game. How is he doing so well statistically and yet, like you said there, you watch him and you think, what is going on?
I don't know. He's just an eyesore, though. When I'm watching, there's just certain decisions he makes. Because we said it live on air. People look at pass success rate, completed passes, etc. There'll be times where our momentum breaks down because he passes it behind someone. He's not passing it back foot. Someone's having to control it a couple feet off the air because he's not slicked it across the ground. Sometimes he sets for a bit wrong, but it still goes to the other player, and then it gets completed as a completed pass. Stats can sometimes be misleading. They can be manipulated to suit any kind of narrative and agenda. But from where I was seeing, he did very few things correctly, and as a midfielder for Manchester United, just being steady isn't good enough either.
Yeah.
You need to affect games. I don't think he does affect games. And I think the combination of Casemiro and Fred today, from the moment I saw it, I didn't think it was going to be very good in terms of creativity and holding on to the ball. We did see a couple of times where he lost the ball in our third trying to play out. And I was worried about that because I know Newcastle were very aggressive when he pressed high and they're very dangerous in that instance. So I'm not going to shit on him like too much, but I just think he's not the quality that we require in there. And him alongside Ronaldo being basically anonymous up front. I also think Anthony could have been a bit more direct against Burn. I think every time that Anthony went 1v1 against Burn, he got past him, but he just didn't do it enough.
Well, interesting you say that. Marcus Rashford was on the pitch for, I think, 25 minutes and completed more take-ons and attempted as many take-ons as Anthony did in the whole 90.
Was Anthony second?
Anthony's second, Rashford's first. But you know what I mean? Yeah. Anthony was up against Dan Burn. Rashford came on 20 minutes to go and still went past players or tried to go past players more often than Anthony did. There was a point where he tried to go past Dan Burn and went, why had he done that all game?
Exactly. And I said he could literally do that every time. And what was also annoying is Sancho started the game so well. It was a bright spark. For the first 25 minutes, he looked like our most likely player.
Isn't that Jadon Sancho in a nutshell?
But there's something not like... I said he doesn't have. There's a fire he doesn't have. Some people naturally have it. Some people don't. He just doesn't seem to have it in there. Do you know what I mean? It's like everything's within his comfort zone. Do you know what I mean? He doesn't seem to make himself uncomfortable. He doesn't seem to exert himself too much. Everything seems very one-paced a lot of the time, which is annoying because he's got the ability to affect games more than he does.
Yeah.
He showed that in the first half an hour or so in the game where he looked like he was our most dangerous player. And then he just goes out of the game and he just doesn't seem to, I don't know, there's something from a motivational standpoint I don't see there.
Yeah, like certain people like Wayne Rooney in my lifetime is probably the United player where I most look at him and think he will just die to do anything, to win.
Yeah.
Vidic was another one where you just watch him and think, they will go till the 95th minute of every single game, trying as hard as they did in the first minute. They'll get injured for the sake of it. They'll get hurt. They'll get this. They'll get that. They'll make themselves look silly. They'll try something that doesn't come off, and then they'll try it again because they just need to get it right and they need to win games. It don't feel like there's a few players for United at the minute who don't seem quite like they have that. Well, like you said, where they're just willing to risk everything physically, you know, emotionally, embarrassment-wise, to get the win or to do the right thing. And it just, I don't know, sometimes I think he's drifting out of games in those big matches, or not even big matches, but those crucial matches like this one where it's 0-0, the game is in the balance. I feel like I didn't see Jadon Sancho in the second half of that game, let alone, you know, I think he played the full 90 minutes, didn't he?
Yeah.
Like the final few minutes, I felt like he was barely on the pitch.
Rashford was mentioned as a key player before the game. I thought going into the game against Newcastle, I thought the way that they play, where the game can be quite high turnover, very transitional, I thought Rashford would be very good in this kind of game. I think if Rashford started, we would have had a better chance.
I think we'd have won.
It's crazy we're saying that after the past 18 months he's had, but he has found his best form in a long time, and he does provide. I think what exposes other players is the fact that Rashford just has an element of speed and pace to his game, whether sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, that the rest of our forwards doesn't have. Martial's one of the only ones where he's a little bit more diversified, where he's got a bit of everything.
Yeah.
You look at the front three that we started with, Ronaldo, Anthony, Sancho. It's a very one-paced front three. There's a lot of quality in that front three, don't get me wrong. But which one of those players is going to run in behind? What one of the players is going to threaten behind? Who's going to go long? Who's going to knock it and run? It's very five-a-side and technical, that front three.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Like good touches, step over here and there, body feint, pass it back to the edge of the box. That
doesn't work with the kind of profile of the squad we've got at the moment. I think he needs at least one of the players to be a little bit more. That's why Langer played so much, because there's a bit of he might lack a lot of quality, but there's a bit of energy, endeavour and speed and pace that he plays with.
Run and get it.
Do you know what I mean? And sometimes that can be more effective.
Yeah, and I think that it was unfortunate, Ten Hag, that we've got crucial injuries. I mean, obviously, I think everyone saw what the update and the ongoing situation with Mason Greenwood. That, you know, nothing more to say on that. Obviously, with it being an ongoing situation. But again, it's a player out of the squad that is not there. You got Marcus Rashford, who is, you know, 50% fit today by the sound of things. That's why he was on the bench. You've got Martial, who is injured. You've got Ronaldo, who is 37 and out of form.
Yeah.
Like, in terms of attacking options, we don't really have many, and we've lost 3 immediately, and then you've got people who are sort of filling in those gaps. But I think if Rashford was fit, he would have played. Then you go back down the pitch a little bit. Eriksen, who has been arguably our most important player this season in terms of keeping the ball and changing the mentality of the team into being a team where they go, actually, we can just control this game. We can have 60-70% possession rather than having to be a counter-attacking team. He's out. Like, it just felt as though it was always going to be difficult today. And looking up and down that subs bench, Rashford is the only one that I think has ever scored 2 goals in one game for United. Yeah, like, you know, the rest of them had either barely played or, you know, not been particularly effective. So it was always going to be a tricky game. Let's move on to a couple of super chats, because there's a point here that I want to make that came in just a minute ago about VAR. Jason K says, ref had a shocker today. Didn't want to make any decisions. Should have had 2 penalties minimum. Where was VAR this week to fix those mistakes? I don't know about 2 penalties, but that tackle on Sancho from Sean Longstaff, he goes to kick the ball, misses the ball, kicks Jadon Sancho in the shins. It's checked by VAR, no penalty. What is that? How has that happened?
I've gone on to say this. VAR is meant to obviously come in and help us. but there's still human error involved in it. And it's also the fact that I think refereeing VAR decisions are heavily weighed by how kind of volatile the appeals are. I think if there's like a blatant pen or there's something there that looks like it's set to be a decision, but another decision was given in normal play, if it's gone to VAR just like in a subtle background check, or it's like a little bit, just check this for me, rather than it being, please check this because the players have kicked up a fuss and there's been a mass appeal around the referees. I think they quite often, it doesn't get changed because
they take the easy way out.
They take the easy. I think it's a bit of a cop out.
Yeah,
I thought like in the last game, I think if there's a decision to be made, they're kind of swayed by like how intense the appeals were on the pitch. Yeah. If they weren't, if we're like, I won't change the decision. I'll just kind of cop out of it.
Because to me,
there's a bit of that.
When you look at it technically, yes, he made a meal of it. He jumped up in the air. It was a almost like stupidly flamboyant that his response to it, Sancho. But he didn't get the ball. He went for it. He kicked Jadon Sancho in the shins. He tripped him up. That is a foul. It just is a foul. Jacob Morris, this is the happiest I've been after a draw in years. It feels hopeful. Cheers, boys. Do you share that hopefulness, that optimism that Jacob feels there?
Maybe because in the past that would be the type of game that we'd lose. Like they'd nick it. Obviously, Joe Linton hit the post a couple of times. We saw the XG stats. So apparently, Newcastle had more XG. I did think when Rashford went round the keeper, he could have maybe tried to shoot himself around that angle. We did the right thing. He pulled it back, and Fred skewed it on his strong, weak foot. I don't know how you describe it, and misses the target. I just think, all in all, it was a game that lacked a lot of quality from both teams in general, if I'm not going to lie to you.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of turnovers, a lot of passes going astray. It was crying out for someone just to show a little bit of brilliance, a little bit of quality, and I don't think anyone grabbed the game by the scruff of the neck and shown that.
And just on quality, Marcus Rashford, that header in the last minute, unbelievable cross from Casemiro outside of his foot, straight onto Rashford's head, 5 yards out, middle of the goal. There, for me, whether he's a number 9 or a winger or this or that, if you're a professional footballer, you have to hit the target with your head there. I'm not a professional footballer. I would be embarrassed if I missed the target there. Head it down, head it on target. That's all you have to do. To head that wide, what do you think that is? Is that a Rashford problem? Is that it's the 95th minute and this is to win the game? Too much pressure on him? Like, how can he not be hitting the target?
He's just never been good in the air.
But he's never been like, you have to beat a man or you have to.
Actually, he's bad in the air. I don't know.
You know what I mean, though? It's
he just needed to hit the target, and it's kind of inexplicable how he didn't. 5 yards out, it wasn't even like it was close wide. I think it was almost a yard wide, to be honest with you. It's not even like he's at the post or he skimmed it. It wasn't a lot of pace on the ball either. Just think it's stuff like that where it's just games like this has just kind of highlighted the fact that we just need a competent striker. And I think in January, I think we need to get rid of Ronaldo and get someone else, if I'm honest with you.
Yeah, we need someone. I mean, whether Martial can come back and keep his fitness and then try and regain the form from 3 years ago, that seems like a mad sequence of events. Whether we get something more out of Ronaldo, which is seeming less and less likely with every passing month as he gets closer to being 40 years old, or we buy someone new, it's clearly an area of the pitch now where basically we've been papering over the cracks since Van Persie at Man United. We got Lukaku was meant to be the next big thing. That immediately crumbled, or, a season in, that crumbled. Then it was get Igalo in for a minute. Okay, just a stopgap.
Yeah.
All right, let's get Cavani in, stopgap. Let's get Ronaldo in, stopgap. We need to stop with the stopgaps and actually get someone in who don't have to be a 22-year-old Erling Haaland. It could be a 28-year-old, a 27-year-old, a 29-year-old, someone who's still got 3 or 4 years at the top, but someone who is a top striker, a good striker that can actually feasibly get Man United 30 goals.
100%.
Because I like Marcus Rashford, and if he can get you 20 goals every season from the left-hand side, you are one of the most productive wingers in the world, and that's excellent. But at some point, we need someone that could get us 30, 40 goals a season, not 15, 20, because they've had a bad year. We need that top-level player, and at the minute, we just don't have it. Manchild said, we created one chance for Ronaldo and he slots it in. Offside in the build-up. He goes off and we cross like crazy non-stop. So annoying. Yeah, it just felt a little bit disjointed today, didn't it? Right, that's going to be all.
The one that Ronaldo slotted in was offside because he was ambling back and 10 yards offside. Remember that one? And then he went to Sancho and then he played Ronaldo in and he scored.
Yeah.
So the reason why, so he's basically saying he's baffled how Ronaldo scored a chance where he was 15 yards offside in the build-up anyway.
Yeah. It was
Do you know what I
Ronaldo
mean?
that was
Yeah.
offside for that chance,
Yeah,
wasn't
yeah.
it?
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, okay.
So
It's just a
Yeah.
frustrating day, isn't it?
it
One
is.
of them where, as the game went on, it looked more and more like United could win it. The chance arrives at the end, doesn't go in.
Yeah.
Should have been another last-minute winner for Manchester United. Thank you, Ronaldo, for coming on. Hit subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and get your thoughts in the comments below on Manchester United's draw with Newcastle. Big games this week. Tottenham on Wednesday, Chelsea on Saturday. Keep tuned to Stretford Paddock. We'll have the build-up and reaction to all of those games. Thanks for watching.